Hello everybody and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips. And first of all, I am so excited that some of you are going to be coming to see me in Copenhagen because that's not very far away. It's like next week. I can't even believe I'm saying that. But coming very soon. So I'm very excited to meet some of you. Actually, one of our people who's in the professional training program is getting a certificate. So instead of mailing it to her, I'm going to hand deliver the certificate. So I'm really excited about things like that. So if any of you are watching this and thinking you might be able to go to Copenhagen for the conference that will be on Saturday, March 9th, you can send me an email at pampopper@msn.com. Be happy to provide you with details and all that. I think some really interesting things are going to be discussed at this conference. I'm very much looking forward to it. So just some feedback from some of your comments. The first thing is that some of you, 2 or 3 of you have said, I go on the comment section and it says that there are like 20 comments to this video and then I don't see any. Here's the thing, this is my system because I'm so busy. On Friday morning, I go in and I approve the comments that I can approve. I'll tell you why I don't approve them in a minute. But the point is that there could be 20 comments accumulating over the period of a week because I don't go in there every day because I just don't have time. So Friday is the day I do it, and then they get approved, and then we don't do it again until next Friday. So that's probably why you see comments that are posted, but you can't see them. All right, now, why don't I approve them? Well, some of the reasons include bad language, denigrating my character, or my appearance. I've just decided that I really don't want to post all the stuff about needing plastic surgery and etc. When you scream at me in capital letters, I'm not going to post that. Links to sites I don't have time to review or on which are posted a lot of things that we know are problematic because we just don't have time to write something and say, if you go to this site, this particular article is okay, but ignore everything else there. I mean, we just don't have, I wish that we had time to do it, but we don't have 3 stories of building full of people that have all day long to pay attention to this stuff. And then the thing that a lot of you get concerned about is you don't like the fact that it's not an open forum. So some of you say, why don't you just post everything and let us all talk to each other? Well, the problem that causes is that we have become known internationally, as it turns out, as a trusted source of information. And so when people go to a site that I maintain or the company maintains or whatever, they have this feeling that they can take it to the bank, this is going to be pretty accurate stuff. Now some of you can scream all day long about the fact that you disagree, but that's not a replacement for having a scientific discussion about it. But in any case, if we just let this be an open forum, and everybody's posting whatever the heck they want to post, we get away from this trusted source, vetted according to standards and all that sort of thing. So that's why we don't just let everybody talk to each other. There are websites out there where you can do that, plenty of them. And even some in our community that do that. I'm not saying it's a terrible idea. That's just not what we do here. All right. So I think one of the things that it might be helpful for some of you to understand is we have a pretty well-defined view of what we do here. And it's what we do. And you might not like it, but I like it. And so since I'm the person who started this company and I have to be happy every day coming to work, what I like is the thing that we do. So I'm sorry if you don't like it. Couple other things. Understand when you make a comment the difference between a story and science. So some of you will write and say, but I started using bone broth and it made me run fast, jump high, and require 2 hours of sleep a night, and my son drinks bone broth and he's better at math in the 8th grade. I mean, all that storytelling. It doesn't change any of the facts that we report about something like bone broth. So when you tell me your story about how you took this supplement or that supplement or you eat these animal foods or that diet and it's just working out great for you, first of all, it's a story, not science. And the second thing is, trust me, on some of these things that you're doing, at some point in time you'll find out it's not such a good idea. Citing a study doesn't make a point. Okay, Marcia Angel, the former editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, wrote a book called The Truth About Drug Companies. She's written several books actually that are very good. And she has a very nice blog where she talks about issues of the day in medicine. And I'm paraphrasing here, but she says something on her site to the effect of, it gives me no great pleasure to report that most of what's published in medical journals today is inaccurate, like 95% of it. Now you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because the 5% that's there that's worth paying attention to is important. But just citing a study that shows something, the study can be poorly designed. It can be irrelevant because the preponderance of the evidence shows something else. And and that sort of thing. So, so when you get angry because I didn't post a link to the study that you think refutes what I said, that's the reason why. A study, let me give you an example that might help you understand. I could do a really good presentation, slide set, with references and everything else on the fact that smoking is actually okay. In some situations, it's good for you. You should take up the habit. You'd be thinking, gosh, have I been misunderstanding this all these years? No, it's because I cherry-picked studies from the medical literature that show a benefit that were sponsored by tobacco companies, or back in the days when the tobacco companies were big advertisers in the medical journals because they used to advertise. But it would be very disingenuous because the preponderance of the evidence, the vast majority of studies show smoking not so good for you, okay? So that's why a single study doesn't make a difference and why I sometimes don't approve a comment. And then another thing that you ask about, and it goes to this point that I'm talking about now, is, well, some of those studies that I'm a subscriber to the library, and some of those studies were published a long time ago. Actually, a study is not valued based on when it was published. It's valued based on the study design, the researchers and their conflicts of interest, and all kinds of other issues that have nothing to do with the date it was published. And to a certain extent, because the influence of the drug companies and medical institutions and that sort of thing has gotten much worse over the years, stuff that was published a couple, 3 decades ago is often much more reliable in many, many ways. So if you're judging the study by the date on it, then you really do not understand how to read the medical literature. So you should be in my class tonight, my research and writing class, so that you can learn how to read the medical literature and write articles and look things up on your own and that sort of thing. Class starts tonight. You could still get in. We are the kings and queens of the last minute enrollment here. So if you decide you want to take this class, pampopper@msn.com. If you want to come to Denmark, pampopper@msn.com. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about something that's really disturbing to me. I'm hoping it's disturbing to you as well. We talk about a lot of disturbing things on this channel. I guess it's my job to bring this information to you. Democrat Congressman Adam Schiff has written a letter to Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, asking how Facebook intends to protect users from seeing what he calls misleading information about vaccines on the social media site. He's also emailed or mailed letters to the CEO of Google. Google owns YouTube, by the way, the channel that you're watching right now. Unrelated to Schiff's inquiries, Pinterest was said in a Wall Street Journal article yesterday that they've stopped returning results for searches related to vaccines, stating that this drastic step was taken in order to stop the spread of misinformation. Now, in Schiff's world, free speech only refers to speech that he approves of, and he's a firm believer that government intervention is needed in all areas of life, including what people are allowed to read and hear. It must be vetted because the public is so stupid. I have to admit it's kind of a welcome break from his allegations and fantastical tales about Donald Trump's real estate empire being built by the Russians. But be that as it may, this is really a serious issue that deserves some consideration. Schiff's letters state that Facebook's algorithms are not designed to differentiate between quality information and misinformation, and the consequences of this are, quote, troubling for public health issues. Fortunately, at least for now, Facebook has not indicated that it intends to delete negative information about vaccines from its platform. Instead, the company is considering options such as reducing or eliminating the vaccine discussion from recommendations such as groups you should join. But even this is a form of censorship. Facebook or politicians or others deciding that the public is stupid and can't sift through information about vaccines and form an educated opinion. So therefore, the flow of information should be controlled by people who are smarter and more qualified to evaluate it. My concern about this is the slippery slope. How far does this go, and how could this type of criteria eventually be applied to other health issues? For example, university based oncologists might determine that information shared on social media sites by people who decided against conventional cancer treatment is dangerous because it might convince other cancer patients to forego conventional treatment, and so on. If you think this is not possible, I want you to consider a couple of things that have happened in real life. My business partner and good friend and colleague, Dr. Peter Bregan, many years ago after an appearance on the Oprah Winfrey Show, during which he refuted the allegation that psychological issues are caused by chemical imbalances in the brain. They're not. and said that nobody should take psychiatric drugs, medical institutions and the American Psychiatric Association moved to take away his medical license. He spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and a good portion of a few years making sure that he kept his medical license, and he actually won at the end, but the fact that the answer to dissenting opinions is this type of retaliation should be concerning to all of us. There's a tendency to think that, I know a lot of health professionals watch this channel, that if there's smoke, there's fire, these people must be doing something wrong. You really should read documents before you start making those allegations. You'd be surprised at what you find. And the second thing is, it's unfortunate, but the people who win these types of battles are usually people who have money to invest in winning them, and the people who are not financially well set end up getting punished by the government and other people who are not happy about what they're saying. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the impetus behind Schiff's concern that the recent that this type of censorship is needed, and it stems from the recent epidemic or outbreak of measles. Now, I want to put this in perspective, okay? According to what the media is reporting, over 100 cases have been confirmed in 10 states. Now, there are about 330 million people living in the United States, which means that the new definition of an epidemic is a disease that impacts one person out of 3.3 million people. I want you to think about that for a minute. Washington Governor Jay Inslee declared a state of emergency in January because 25 cases of measles were reported in a single county. And the World Health Organization has determined that vaccine hesitancy is one of the top global threats of 2019. Is there really an emergency? Is the measles a dreadful disease with a high mortality rate? Well, according to the U.S. Public Health Service National Center for Health Statistics in 1968, their report, the death rate from measles had dropped to almost zero by 1962, the year before the vaccine was introduced. The vaccine was a solution looking for a problem to solve. Between 1956 and 1960, an average of 542,000 cases of measles were reported each year in the United States, with an average of 450 deaths per year. This means the death rate from measles was 0.00083% before the vaccine. In other words, the risk of dying from measles was almost nil. Additionally, and I don't want to make light of the 450 deaths per year, but you're talking about 450 deaths out of 542,000 cases. We could save more deaths by focusing on something else, I believe. But here's the other thing. I will never understand, and nobody has been able to explain to me, how an unvaccinated child with measles is a threat to a child who's been vaccinated against the measles, because isn't the purpose of vaccination so that the child doesn't get the measles? Well, the problem is that a lot of children who have been vaccinated are getting the measles. The vaccine is not protective. The bottom line is that the way to resolve differences regarding issues like vaccinations is by encouraging debate, not by finding ways to quiet anybody who has a dissenting opinion. The only thing that happens when this type of thing occurs is it galvanizes people who suspect that something is terribly wrong about this vaccine issue. Because why else would you need to use censorship and scare tactics along with the dissemination of inaccurate information that a high school student could refute if he spent an afternoon on it? And what I mean by that is, if you showed a high school student how to do PubMed searches, you could, and then turn the kid loose with a list of questions to answer about vaccinations and death rate and efficacy rates and the whole 9 yards, you'd get a pretty good term paper at the end of the day that would refute a lot of what people are saying. So this is actually not the way to go about this at all. Now, I'm confident that angry Americans are going to get mobilized and join together sometime in the future to get rid of this problem, and I'll tell you how you get rid of it. You vote these people out of office that do this stuff. If you don't like Adam Schiff's suggestion that Facebook should censor, or Google should censor vaccine information, that's a really easy way to solve this. In 2020, vote him out. And if people would get mobilized to do that, I get letters every day, emails every day from people in California who are upset about the vaccine mandate out there. Vote the people out who did this. And if we don't decide to do something like this, I don't want to hear the complaining anymore. I worked on legislative issues in several states a few years ago, because I got targeted too, by almost anybody who's doing something right in this field. As a matter of fact, when people tell me that they've never been targeted by anybody, I'm wondering if they really got anything done at all, because I think all of us do get targeted at some point in time. But in any case, people used to call me and tell me about their problems, and I'd say, well, who's your state representative? I don't know. Who's your senator? I don't know. Who'd you vote for in the last election? I didn't vote. And I tell them, I don't even want to talk to you till you get registered to vote and you decide to do something about this. It's not my job to fix everybody's problems while everybody sits at home and says, I hope that Pam Popper really gets something done in this area. So we really have got to get the collective group of people. I think the people who are opposed to this kind of thing I'm talking about right now is the biggest percentage of the population in the country. And I think it crosses party lines. I think it's an equally Democrat and Republican concern that censorship in our country is not a good idea. And if you believe that, then let's start organizing and getting groups of people together and agreeing in areas where we can. We can put aside a lot of differences to agree on an issue like this that is so very important, which is the right to free speech and the right for people to find out about things. That's one of the things that's a hallmark of our democracy. That's one of the things our founders fought for, is they didn't want everything to be so regulated, including the ability of people to talk about disliking the government. Is that what's going to be next? You're not allowed to say something negative about a politician. You can't really talk about vaccines maybe being a problem, and you can't talk about elected officials that you don't like. I mean, this really is a slippery slope that should concern you all. And when I'm calling out Schiff here, he's the one who wrote the letters. But all these politicians, in my opinion, they are way too involved in our everyday life. And we would do well to get them out of our everyday life. And I'll just finish by sharing this with you. Many, many years ago, I was talking about the government and Congress with a good friend of mine, an attorney. And I was saying, these people never get anything done. And he goes, Pammy, the best thing in the world is when they never get anything done. Because when there's gridlock and they can't do anything, they can't hurt people. It's only when they actually get something done that it becomes more screwed up than it was before. So he says what you really want is divided government, and you want them to spend all their time screaming at each other and get nothing done, because at the end of the year, we're all better off without them being involved in our lives. And I've never thought about it that way before. But having said that, I really do think that some of these people need to be gone. And I'll tell you what, you wouldn't have to take out everybody. You only have to take out a couple dozen high-profile legislators who are really intrusive. And the other ones would get the message. You know what? These voters just won't put up with this stuff anymore. Apparently, when we talked about representative government, I got elected as a representative. They were really serious about this stuff. They expect me to represent them. And you get the other ones in line. So we don't have to, get rid of all of them, although the good argument could be made to get rid of all of them. We don't have to do that. We just have to get rid of a few of them. And then the rest of them, I think, could be brought in line to actually take into consideration what the public thinks. All right, well, that's all for today. Hit that subscribe button, and as usual, pass this on to anybody who you think might enjoy watching it, and I will get back to you on Thursday with some more news.